Right now, a ship is leaving Brazil loaded with enough soybeans to feed 30 million people. Destination? Shanghai. Not a single grain came from America. 5 years ago, that sentence was impossible. 5 years from now, it could be the new normal. And it all traces back to one port, one country pulling the strings, and one American decision that backfired catastrophically. In 2017, America was China's top agricultural supplier, $25.9 billion in exports, soybeans leading the way. Then came the trade war. Beijing retaliated with 25% tariffs on American soy. Exports to China dropped roughly 50% almost overnight. Washington expected China to come back to the table. Instead, Beijing looked south. Brazilian soy exports to China surged to roughly 68 million tons in 2018, a record. By 2020, Brazil supplied nearly 70% of China's soy imports. The Phase 1 deal partially recovered American sales, but something structural had changed. China discovered it didn't need the United States. And the port that would make that permanent? Santos. Here's what most people miss. Brazilian and American soy harvests happen at different times. Brazil from February to May, the U.S. from September to November. China historically needed both. But with enough storage infrastructure at Santos, China can stockpile Brazilian soy year-round. That's not diversification. That's replacement. Santos moves more agricultural product than any port in the Southern Hemisphere. Coffee, sugar, beef, and above all, soy. But it's choking. Ships wait 40 to 50 hours to dock. The port runs at over 90% capacity during harvest season. So Brazil launched a modernization program worth $20 billion across multiple phases. Deepened channels, new terminals, smart technology, and the boldest piece, a $950 million immersed tunnel beneath the bay. That tunnel adds 4 lanes where no road existed, potentially doubling the port's landside access and handling roughly 29,000 vehicle crossings daily. But the real engineering challenge is underwater. Santos's navigation channel sits at 49 feet. To accommodate fully loaded Neo-Panamax vessels, it needs to reach 56 feet by 2031. That means removing millions of cubic meters of sediment annually. Every additional foot of depth lets a Neo-Panamax carry roughly 2,500 more tons per trip. Across hundreds of annual voyages, that's millions of tons of extra capacity without building a single new ship. China's state-owned COFCO is building the centerpiece, the STS-11 terminal, a $285 million facility designed to handle 14 million tons of grain annually. Automated conveyors processing 1,500 tons per hour, fed by 120-car freight trains running directly from interior farmlands. But here's what most videos leave out. COFCO isn't operating alone. Santos is dominated by 4 Western giants most people have never heard of: ADM, Bunge, Cargill, and Louis Dreyfus. They collectively control roughly 70% of global grain trade and profit enormously from Brazil-China flows, regardless of who's buying. Cargill's revenue hit $177 billion in 2023. The reality isn't one villain, it's a competition, and China is playing it better. Here's a number that explains why Santos's tech upgrade matters. In 2023, a ship docking at Santos averaged 17 days from arrival to departure. Each day costs $15,000 to $30,000 in fuel, fees, and factory delays. A $250 million smart port system, AI-driven traffic modeling, a digital twin simulating the entire port in real time, energy-efficient cranes cutting power costs by 30%, aims to slash processing times by 20%. When Brazil loads a ship in 72 hours instead of 17 days, Brazilian soy becomes cheaper and faster than American soy. Every hour Santos saves is an hour U.S. Gulf ports have to match. But here's what almost nobody covers. Santos isn't even the only front. Brazil is building a separate export corridor in its north, the Arco Norte. Ports like Itaqui and Barcarena already handle over 30% of Brazil's grain exports, up from 15% a decade ago. Ships from Itaqui reach Shanghai faster than from Santos. COFCO operates there too. This means Santos isn't a single point of failure, it's the flagship of a distributed network. Even if Santos stalls, the northern arc picks up slack. That redundancy is strategic. And in 2023, when a historic drought cut Panama Canal capacity by nearly 40%, Santos, which routes around Africa or through Suez, became the more reliable option. Climate change is reshaping trade geography. Santos is on the winning side. Every ton of soy flowing through Santos started somewhere, and increasingly, it's the Cerrado, Brazil's tropical savanna. Not the Amazon, though that gets the headlines. The Cerrado holds 12,000 plant species and 850 bird species, and farmers can legally clear 80% of its native vegetation on private land. Between 2019 and 2023, the Cerrado lost more native vegetation than the Amazon. Nobody in Shanghai or Washington asks where their cooking oil comes from. Then there's the money. A significant share of Santos's modernization involves Chinese capital. Some analysts call it debt trap diplomacy, deliberate overlending to seize assets. But researchers like Deborah Brodegum at Johns Hopkins have shown Chinese lending rarely results in asset seizures. The Hambantota case was more complex than the popular narrative. Still, when the country financing your port also buys 70% of your soy, that's leverage. And leverage, in geopolitics, is everything. So what is America doing? U.S. Gulf ports are upgrading, New Orleans deepening its channel, Houston expanding capacity. But the projects are smaller, slower, and fragmented. There's no unified strategy matching what Brazil is doing with Chinese backing. Washington has responded with tariffs on Brazilian steel and aluminum. But for every American tariff, there's a Chinese loan. Brazil's largest trading partner has been China for 14 consecutive years. That's not a trend. That's gravity. This story has no villains. China is securing food supply. Any rational nation would. Brazil is monetizing the most productive farmland on Earth. And the United States made a bet in 2018 that its market power was irreplaceable. It wasn't. Every cubic meter dredged from Santos's channel is an act of geopolitical engineering. Every silo filled is a vote of confidence in a future where America is no longer the world's indispensable food supplier. The ships are already sailing. The question is whether anyone in Washington is watching. If this changed how you see global trade, watch what we found about the U.S. Navy's growing concern over Brazil's ports, right here. Subscribe. New investigations every week.